It's easy as 1, 2, 3 finding a company that excels in electrical, plumbing, AC installation and repairs, painting and much more. SAS Electrical is here for you, giving you excellent service, great rates, timely completion. Contact SAS Electrical at 709-9215 or 359-1014. Call us today. SAS Electrical. Streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and more. GLS 103.5 out of Tobago.
In your face, all over the place. We're online. You're listening to the hottest internet station
In the Caribbean, GLS
103.5
out of Tobago. Buckle up those seatbelts. No drinking and driving. No overtaking on the shoulders. No texting and driving. Your family awaits you at home. Drive to arrive alive. A message from GLS 103.5.
This is an SOS from the Trinidad. Location 7 miles off the coast of Venezuela. SOS, Mayday. Help! The Trinidad, a luxury liner, sailing the Caribbean Sea with an old captain named Eric Williams. Oh yes, sail smooth and free, but sadly Eric Williams passed away. The ship hit rough water that day. Someone turned the bridge over to a captain named Chambers. Me blood crawl, things start to fall. Hold me head when I sail a ball. Captain, the ship is sinking. Captain, the seas are rough. Oh yes, we gas tank almost empty, no electricity. We oil pressure reading low. Shall we abandon ship or shall we stay on it and perish slow? We don't know. Captain, you tell me what to do. Whoa. The Trinidad, oh, she was a beauty with wealth that few surpassed. And in her day, she sailed majestically. There were few in her class. Faithfully, she fulfilled her sailor's need. Some were overpowered by greed, and so they pilfered slow. Some took bite, bulk, and go. Now she looked dull, she's at the lull. She could barely sit on her hull. Captain, the ship is sinking. Captain, the seas are rough, oh yes. We gas tank almost empty, no electricity. We oil pressure reading low. Shall we abandon ship or shall we stay on it and perish slow? We don't know. Captain, you tell me what to do. Whoa. Trinidad, in her day of sailing, she was a friend to one and all. She never once ever hesitated to answer all SOS calls. And yes, well, she always did her best to help out those in distress. Now it's so sad to see she's in cheer, some of them cheer, and sarcastically declare, Captain, the ship is sinking. Captain, the seas are rough. We gas tank almost empty, no electricity. We oil pressure reading low. Shall we abandon ship, or shall we sit on it and perish slow? We don't know, we don't know. Captain, you tell me what to do. Whoa, whoa. If only there was something I could have done to restore the credibility of this beautiful vessel. Money's no problem. Now there's a lot of fingers pointing, suspicion running strong. Who's to be blamed for all her failures? Who's to be blamed for doing her wrong? Now please remember, I'm warning you, for 30 years she had the same crew who hold the keys to her fault. So we know who's at fault. Now it's up to you, it's up to me to make her worthy to go back to sea. Captain, the ship is sinking. Captain, the seas are rough. Oh yes, we gas tank almost empty, no electricity. We oil pressure reading low. Shall we abandon ship, or shall we stay on it and perish slow? We don't know, we don't know. Captain, you tell me what to do. We don't know, we don't know. Captain, you tell me, oh yo yo. We don't know, we don't know. You tell me, oh, we don't know, we don't know. Put up a flag, oh gosh, we don't know. Could we turn to the World Bank for help? Oh, oh, I oh. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know. Somebody put an application to the World Bank. Probably we may get some help to do the repairs. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know.
Oh yes, good afternoon to one and all. As we say, we don't know. You know, actually it's happening here in Trinidad and Tobago. We actually don't know what's taking place in and around the world. Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to your loved ones, wherever you are. Good afternoon to Mr. Charles. Good afternoon once again. Nice having you inside GLS 103.5 online.
Good afternoon, my brother, and it's always a pleasure to share with not only with Tobago, but with the entire world.
Yes, yes.
And thank you for having me. And not only that, we need to fix Tobago. You know, our program is an educational program.
Yes.
That we share information, we educate the population. And once they are educated, they will take steps to be liberated. They will be free. And when they are free, they will be able to be empowered.
So true, so true.
So that is why we are here always. We have missed a couple of sessions, as you know, because we have been fixing up the studio.
The studio, yes.
Yeah. And we're back on stream now.
Of course.
And it's always a pleasure to share. But
Yes.
Tobago has collapsed, as you know.
Yes.
The whole administration in Tobago has collapsed.
At this point in time.
It has collapsed. And I will share something because there are certain things which took place today. And I need to take us through that because people are asking questions, the media asking questions. I received so many calls from our four media houses today, and because of what would have happened, and I want to share that. We're the Chief Secretary on the 6th of this month, the 6th of May, would have been elected to replace Mr. Kelvin Charles, who demitted office, who resigned and demitted office on the 30th of April. So there was an election based upon the law and the procedure in the Tobago House of Assembly Act for an election of a Chief Secretary. Remember, the Chief Secretary is elected, not appointed. I want to repeat that slowly. The chief secretary is elected by the 12 assemblymen who won the election in the Tobago House of Assembly election, whenever that is held. The last one was in 2017, as you know.
Yes.
So Kelvin Charles was elected one of those members, and when those 12 assemblymen get into the house because they are elected by the people, then there's another election which takes place for those 12 men to elect a chief secretary and a deputy chief secretary. I want to put this analogy. In the Trinidad and the national situation, Trinidad, Barbados, Grenada, that operate according to the Westminster type democracy, the prime minister is not elected. The prime minister, according to the constitution, and most of the constitutions in most of these British Caribbean territories, former British Caribbean territories, they follow the same pattern.
Okay.
The prime minister is appointed by the president from the members in the House of Representatives. We used to have 36, now it is 41. So those 41 members, the president will look at it, and I will give you the constitutional provision. And the president, in fact, the law says that the leader of the party, because you know it's party politics, you know, we go up in Trinidad and Tobago, we have two major parties, the UNC and the PNM, and we want to explain this so that people understand. That the party that wins the majority of seats in that House of Representatives, the leader of that party, who can command the respect of the majority of people inside there, will be appointed as prime minister. So it's normally simple. So the prime minister is one of those persons who is a representative of one of the 41 constituencies, but is also the leader of the party who won, the party that won the majority of seats in that house. And that is the person that is normally appointed by the prime minister, by the president, as the prime minister of the country. In Tobago House of Assembly, it's not so. People making even lawyers are making error because they are accustomed to that. They have not been reading the Tobago House of Assembly Act.
Which is the constitution?
That is the constitution of Tobago, but of course we have the Supreme Constitution, which is the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. And then we have the Tobago House of Assembly Act that deals with how the Tobago House of Assembly will operate. Can't be contrary to the Constitution. In Tobago, when we have 12 seats here, 12 constituencies, 12 electoral districts. When those 12 members are elected by the population in a Tobago House of Assembly election, and those 12 members go to the house, and listen to this carefully, even though you have people who are elected like it is now that are not members of the party that win the most vote, the 12 people, and in this case, you know, you have two minority, which is Mr. Duke and Mr. Fadi, they are also taking part in electing the chief secretary.
Okay. Yeah, because that is something I supposed to ask question about today.
The 12 assemblymen, regardless of what party you belong to, because our Tobago House of Assembly Act does not recognize party.
Okay.
They meet at the first sitting of the assembly that is called by the president. As you know, our Tobago House of Assembly Act is very clear about the procedure. Let me take my time. I don't think I should be busy, because we want to come to the chief secretary, because that is where everybody concerned with. Where you need to take them through the act. This says in section 6 that the president shall administer to the assemblymen at a meeting held for the purpose of this section which is swearing in of the assemblymen and so on, not later than 3 days after the date of the primary election, like the election where you take part in Tobago and what we call the Tobago House of Assembly election. That's the primary election. Or as soon thereafter as the president may consider practicable the oath of office set out in the first schedule. So the president will come up and will administer the oath of office to the 12 people who win their seat in the first schedule. After that is done, and I want to talk about the oath of president and appointment, and then we come to the vacancy, and people making a lot of mistake because they have not read and understood the Tobago House of Assembly. Immediately they take the oath, the president administer the oath under the first schedule. The assemblymen will elect the presiding officer to take charge of the sitting. So it's only the 12 assemblymen who will elect the presiding officer. So when this presiding officer is elected by the 12 assemblymen, after that is done, she take her oath from the president. She take up a seat or he takes up his seat, as the case may be. The next item or the first item that the presiding officer will preside over is Section 8, the election of the Chief Secretary and the Deputy Chief Secretary in Section 8 of the Tobago House of Assembly Act. When they elect the Deputy Chief Secretary and the Chief Secretary, the President will administer the oath, and it says so in Section 8 of the, it says so. Upon the election referred to in 7, the assemblymen shall elect from among their number the Chief Secretary and the Deputy Chief Secretary in accordance with Section 11. Section 11 deal with how the procedure that must be followed. That you have to nominate, and then if you have 2 people that vote and so on, 1 nomination you can't make 2, and the case the procedure is set out in Section 11. Okay. And it says, the President shall administer to the Chief Secretary and the Deputy Chief Secretary, respectively, the oath of office set out in the 3rd schedule. So in the first sitting after every election, the oath of office is administered by the President. When that is done, the next thing that happens, follow me well, this going to be short, this part of it, is that the President will appoint the person who belonged to the House but did not support the Chief Secretary in the House, like in this case, Mr. Duke.
Mr. Duke, yes,
he will appoint that person Minority Leader.
Okay.
I give you the whole procedure. And we'll tell you where people making a lot of error. So the Minority Leader is appointed by the President, and then the oath is administered. Not by the President. But listen to this. Immediately after the appointment of the Minority Leader, the presiding officer shall, acting in accordance with the advice of the Chief Secretary, appoint 3 councillors. It is not the President that appoint them. It is the presiding officer that appoint the 3 councillors on the advice of the Chief Secretary. And that is why all of those elections that take place first, because for you to have councillor, the law says the Chief Secretary will say appointee, and the Minority Leader will say appoint 1. So that is why all of those things take place first. And then you have the 1 councillor appointed, and then by the presiding officer on the advice of the Chief Secretary, and then 1 by the Minority Leader.
Okay.
Now, when that is done, it is the President again that administer to each councillor the oath of office set out in the 4th schedule. So you see that first sitting of the Assembly after Tobago House of Assembly election is the President.
Is the President.
Well, listen to this. We're not following that. All the assemblymen now and councillors will now move, and I go to end here, will now move to the what? Elect the Deputy Presiding Officer.
All right.
So the presiding officer is elected by all the assemblymen, and the deputy is elected by all the assemblymen and all the councillors. Now, we're not dealing with that now because this is not a Tobago House of Assembly election that has just been going. This is somebody leave their office, resign.
Correct.
No. So we have to go to fill in vacancy. So it's a vacancy in the assembly.
Okay.
So let's go to that. Section 21 of the Tobago House of Assembly. So let me repeat again. So almost all the oaths that have been administered at the first sitting of the assembly after a Tobago House of Assembly election, those oaths are administered by the president. But we now come to filling of vacancy.
Yes.
And filling of vacancy is covered under Section 21 of the Tobago House of Assembly Act. And let me take my time. I'm not going to read all of them. Filling of vacancy, whether it's a by-election that is called to fill a member of the assembly who may die or resign, as the case may be, or a councillor who may have gone or lose their seat, or, listen to this, or subsection 6. Let me read that for you.
Subsection 6. All right.
Section 21, subsection 6 says this. And this is what I want to hear. All those who say it is the president should administer this oath, I want them to hear this. This is the law.
Yes,
they have no grounds to stand on. Listen to what it says. A person elected or appointed to the assembly, hear this word, to fill a vacancy shall be administered the relevant oath of office by the presiding officer. Or where the person is elected to the office of presiding officer by the deputy presiding officer. So any other post that become vacant that you have to fill, the procedure for filling the post is outlined in this law as I have just read.
Yes.
Once that post is filled, and in the case of the chief secretary last week, the election took place, the 12 men went there, and they elect the chief secretary based upon the law to fill Kelvin Charles's vacancy that he would have created by resigning as chief secretary.
Yes.
So we fill in the vacancy. And what this says, a person elected or appointed, because councillors are appointed, to the assembly to fill a vacancy shall what? Not may, you know. Shall be administered the relevant oath of office by the presiding officer. Or where the person is elected to the office of presiding officer by the deputy presiding officer. Let's assume that the presiding officer that left his office.
Yes.
It happened with Denise and Sayafat, you know, when she left in order to contest. And when Charles left for that person to fill that post, it happened. The deputy presiding officer, if it's the presiding officer post that is vacant, and the people come in and they elect a new presiding officer, the deputy presiding officer will administer the oath. But anybody else, the oath is administered by the presiding officer. What the law say? There is something that people didn't understand here. And it is the saying, well, this is not an election to fill a post in the executive council, is in the assembly. I hear that, you know, and I have to take them to the definition of the word assembly.
Assembly, yes.
And it is in section 3 of the Tobago House of Assembly Act. Let me read it. Tell you, we're making so much a blunder. And then I am sure that everybody will be happy after I'm finished this. What section 3 says, in this act, which is the Tobago House of Assembly Act, assembly means the Tobago House of Assembly referred to in section 141A of the Constitution. And hear this. And unless a contrary intention appears, includes the Executive Council. So the Assembly includes the Executive Council, except the law says it does not include it. So we go to again to section 21, filling a vacancy.
Yes.
It says what? A person elected, and the chief secretary was what? Elected to fill a vacancy of the chief secretary created by Kelvin Charles. And it says what? Once that is done, and that was done last week, Wednesday, who is to administer the oath? The oath of office is administered by the presiding officer. So what the presiding officer did last week, Wednesday, the 6th of May, in this year of our Lord 2020, was legal, proper, and properly constituted.
Okay.
Now, let's read section. So once that was done, Chief Secretary elected, administer his oath. Let's go to section 13. Section 13, you know why you have to give them the oath? Section 13 tell you why. Section 13 of the law says, no person elected or appointed to the assembly shall assume the duties of his office until he is administered the relevant oath of office.
Okay.
Let me read it again.
Yes, repeat that part there once again.
That's why you have to take the oath.
Yes.
No person elected or appointed to the assembly shall assume the duties of his office until he is administered the relevant oath of office.
Okay.
So that is what happened last week, Wednesday. And then section 36, we need to read that. Section 36 of section 3 says, and here these words, and there's where they make a lot of error. And I need to clear that up.
Yes.
Because it says, section 36, subsection 3 says, a secretary other than the chief secretary and the deputy chief secretary or the deputy chief secretary shall vacate his office when any person is appointed or reappointed as chief secretary. The word appointed and reappointed here is where they misunderstand this thing. That was taken clear out of section 77 of the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. And let me explain what the difference is. You hear what I just read it? Let me read section 77, 3, subsection 3 of the Constitution. It says this. A minister other than the Prime Minister, a minister other than the Prime Minister shall vacate his office. Let me read the top of section of 36.3 again. This is section 77.3. Let me read of the Constitution that deals with the Prime Minister and Minister. Let me read section 36.3. This was taken completely out of the Constitution and put here, but you have different meaning. Okay. Same concept, but different meaning. Different application. Let me tell you why. Let me read section 36 of section 3 again. What it says? A secretary other than the chief, because we don't have ministers in the THE. A secretary other than the chief secretary or the deputy chief secretary shall vacate his office. Let me go to the Constitution. A minister other than the Prime Minister shall vacate his office. It said the same thing? Same concept? When any person is appointed or reappointed as Prime Minister. What A said in this? When any person is appointed or reappointed as Chief Secretary, every secretary shall vacate the post. The word appointed in the THA Act in that section is different from the meaning of that word in section 77 of the Constitution, because the Prime Minister is appointed by the President, but the Chief Secretary is elected. So that is what they were saying, that the Chief Secretary has to receive his appointment from the President. I said, no. You don't have to appoint him. He's elected and he takes his oath. He's ready to perform his duties.
Yes, I really heard about that.
That is the error. So I have challenged that. And it will be challenged in the public. I understand that the Chief Secretary went down to Trinidad by the President today to be appointed. And I asked, well, tell me based upon what we just read it, what they were saying, what that means is that whatever was done last week, Wednesday in the house was illegal and improper, so we do it over. But I want to know on what grounds the President administered his oath. I don't know what she did there. What instrument she gave. How did she appoint him? Chief Secretary is not appointed. So appointment and reappointment in the Tobago House of Assembly Act for Chief Secretary, because they're not appointed, means as soon as he is elected and he is installed into office, that is what appointment here mean, and or reappointed, because he may win the election, right?
Yeah, so true. Yeah.
And he come back into the house, so he's also re-elected or re-elected
Correct.
as the same chief secretary.
Chief secretary.
So once that is done, if it's a Tobago House of Assembly election, something else happen. The president will administer that vote under 6. But this is filling a vacancy. So there's a provision for filling a vacancy. So he's not. When we become chief secretary and deputy, the president give us no instrument. You have none.
Okay.
I was the first chief.
Yes, I remember.
I am sure Kelby had no instrument from the president. I'm sure Orville had none. Because there's none.
Yes.
The instruments are given here. Let me tell you where. The same section 33 says, section 33 of the Tobago House of Assembly Act says this, that the Executive Council shall comprise the Chief Secretary, the Deputy Chief Secretary, and listen to this now, such other secretaries not being more than 7, selected from among the members of the Assembly, as the President acting in accordance with the advice of the Chief Secretary may appoint. So every secretary has to be appointed by the President on the advice of the Chief Secretary.
Yes.
So they are the only ones. The minority leader on the first day, as you know, as I read that for you in section 8A, is appointed by the President. And the only other person appointed by the President, it is the secretaries on the advice of the Chief Secretary.
Yes.
Chief Secretary is not appointed by the President. He's elected. So whatever is done in President House today is improper and illegal. I want to say that again. If the President did anything like she appoint the Chief Secretary today, that is illegal and improper and has no basis in law. What was done by the presiding officer last week, Wednesday, was properly done and legally done.
Right, so, okay, I understand.
Oh my God, it's a blunder upon a blunder.
Yes. I think the whole idea is because this guy is actually the youngest, that have been in the position of a chief secretary. I don't know if I'm right here, but I believe that is part of the situation.
No, not he. He's not doing anything. What is happening is that Kelvin Charles, as you know,
Yes.
2 months ago, would have announced to this country at every forum that he's going to demit office on the 30th of April. Not so? So 2 months ago, every one of us, including Prime Minister, President, me, you, everybody else in the Assembly, know that Kelvin Charles is going to resign and leave office on we talk about it on this program, on the 30th day of April. You mean nobody knew what to do so that we didn't have this fiasco you don't want today? They have not looked at the act, consult with people so that they know what to do. Let me say this. So it means, according to section 36(3), that anybody who remain in office as a secretary and do any function as secretary from last week Wednesday, all those actions are illegal, null and void.
Well, look at that.
And I hope that people don't mislead the president in terms of advice to cover up that illegality by having this reappointment, which is an illegal thing done today. Let me hope.
So let us
I'm
actually
challenging
look
it
at
in
this.
public.
It's basically in this situation, isn't it that the president's supposed to come in instead of the person who is the chief secretary?
She can decide. But I think this is a nation of Trinidad and Tobago,
Yes.
and you have a House of Assembly here. I think that the president should come up and do that. Because in the first stage, but I believe, well, I don't know. It should come here. But the president can choose to say, well, okay, I don't know the duties and so on. Might very well say, well, come down.
Yes.
But the chief secretary is not to go down. It is the secretaries that were supposed to go down. And if they didn't go down today, it means that you have all of them back in office. Since last week. But I understand that they were calling press conference and operating still. when the man was legally elected in office, and section 36(3) says that they vacate office. They don't resign, you know. Soon as he's appointed and he take his oath, they automatically vacate office. They're not there, but they were functioning still. So every action that they took between last week Wednesday, after he took his oath, and today are illegal, null and void, of no effect.
Yes, yes.
Now we hope that this thing today is not to cover up that.
So true.
Because there's so much implications to that. You operate in an office that you're not supposed to be in a public office.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they now find that out, so they allow this thing to be done. I don't know. We're going to find out.
Yeah, we will.
But the president will have to respond to this, you know, and I'm very sorry, you know. Because the same thing happened, you know, in 2017, the last Tobago House of Assembly election. You remember that? When they were campaigning, the president, you know, the president then, and I'm not accusing anybody, I'm just stating some statement of fact. The president then would have signed the writ for the election to be held in 2017. You remember that?
Yes.
Campaigning was going on, and a week before, I was not involved. Our organization was not involved in the election. I come out and say this election is illegal.
Yes.
The Attorney General and all in public says, what Charles know about law? And I said, but I don't know. But the Holy Spirit know more than you and me. When it got to is the president who signed the writ. You know? It's President Carmona who signed the writ, which was illegal.
Okay.
In 2017. And then when he got him, he said, oh my God, this thing is illegal in Tool. You remember?
Yes.
The parliament had to sit on the Friday and the Saturday in order to do something which has not corrected the error that was done, you know.
Yes. So true.
In order that the election could have taken place on the Monday. I am challenging, I don't want to say challenge the president. The action that have been taken today, I'm challenging it. It's illegal. It has no basis in law.
No, sir. Okay, people, send us your comments. What do you think about the discussion that actually happening with the chief
Good
secretary?
afternoon to all.
All right, good afternoon to Mr. Clark. Good afternoon.
Good
from out of
afternoon,
New
everyone.
York.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to also Jonah Murray. Seen many of you all here, but hey, he sent us good afternoon to Tony. Good afternoon to Alice, Miss Jones, Angela Jones.
Yeah,
Good afternoon.
I can't read it too well from here.
Yeah, I'm seeing some of them popping in and they just joining. But hey, send us your comments. Send us your comments. We are here to take your comments. Tell us what you think about the situation with the chief secretary.
If we don't fix the Tobago politics, nothing else will be fixed on this land. You know. What has happened is that they would have transferred the bacchanal in the PNM party, forcing Charles out into the administration of Tobago, into the government of Tobago. And to solve that problem, I think that the people of Tobago need to take charge of their affairs. And I think they should take the legislation before the parliament, the one that is there before the Joint Select Committee. They should take it before the parliament, have it discussed and passed now, because they're carrying legislation, right? 3 pieces went the other day. You have marijuana that went, and since COVID, you went with the campaign financing went the other day, not debated. They went with the electronic monitoring one, and they passed that last week. There's a lot of legislation going before the parliament.
Yes.
But Tobago one is not carried. Carry it there and pass it, and soon as COVID is over, you hold the election, let the Tobago population settle the governance and the administration.
So true, so
That's
true.
the solution to the problem.
So true. Okay, my people, send your comments. I'm seeing a lot of likes and things coming in.
It's so
But send
important.
us your comment. Good afternoon to
Or question, or even question.
Yeah, even so, if you have any question, all right, pertaining to
Thank you,
anything, we are here.
Akila Tate.
Yes.
We are here,
We're
man.
here to answer any
We
question.
answer any question, because so many people called me today, Godfrey. Media houses.
Call you today
I tell you about 4 of them spoke to me
to
today.
ask that said question, debating on that same question.
Clarify this thing. They didn't know this thing at all until I take them through. And they were of the view, when they see the word appointed, they say, but you know, the chief secretary was waiting for his appointment. I said, no. They took this out of section 77 of the Constitution. and write it there, but it doesn't have the same application. Because the Prime Minister, you remember I read it for you?
Yes.
A minister other than the Prime Minister shall vacate his office when any person is appointed or reappointed as Prime Minister. What they say here? A person other than the Chief Secretary or the Deputy Chief Secretary shall vacate his office when any person is appointed or reappointed as Chief Secretary. But the Prime Minister is appointed.
Yes.
The Chief Secretary is not.
Yes,
He's elected.
Correct. That's the difference.
So what appointed means here is that he's elected and he took his oath of office.
Correct, yes.
So he's properly installed into office. Once a chief secretary is legally installed into office, every other secretary vacate their office. That is what it means.
Hey, Mr. Sandy, nice to know you're looking on.
Thank you.
Yes, keep it coming in.
Looking on and listening is very important.
So don't forget any question, even say with the COVID-19, we are here to answer any question.
Yeah, but we need to fix it, Tobago.
Yes,
but they can answer the question, yes, about COVID. Anything.
Yes. Anything to do with Tobago, as you can see the map behind you, us here. So anything to do with Tobago, this is what we're dealing with at this present moment.
Because you need to fix Tobago is mashed up, you know.
Yes.
Imagine, and I said to people, and the point I was making is that Mr. Kelvin Charles gave 2 months notice, you know.
Yes.
I am saying the first thing that anybody who want the salt should have been doing is to look to see what is required to be done in order to replace him when he goes.
Yes.
2 months notice. And remember this. The person who becomes the leader of the PNM and was brought in as councillor, that is Mrs. Davidson, Celestine. She served as Deputy Chief Secretary to Orville, London for a long time. You forget that?
No.
And does not know the Tobago House of Assembly Act. If you can't deal with a little matter like this, give him 2 months. If a crisis comes up, we're dead, you know. If there is a crisis that comes up, you can handle a simple thing like this where the law is clear and you have 2 months advance notice and you can't deal with that. What else can you deal with? And let me tell you, in politics and governance, you are required to make decisions on your feet. On your feet. On the spot of the moment. Things pop up on you now, you have to solve it.
Yes, Dean Don, good afternoon to you too.
Very important. Oh yes, it's Rodriguez.
Yes,
Dion Rodriguez.
Dion, yes.
Good evening to all. Very important. We are here giving you, sharing information, giving you information to empower you.
Yes.
And to cause you to act. Good evening to all. Yes, good evening. Silver Sandy, good evening. You are looking on. Very important. I tell you, I silence so many people. Because a lot of people, I tell you, about 4 media houses spoke to me now. Media houses now, national. Today. Because when they hear this thing, they say, but wait. I hear Mr. Charles saying something, let me clear up this thing.
Yes,
Why the president? I say, well, you have to ask the president on what authority that she did this.
If she had not done it any at all.
But I understand the thing came out with a photograph from the president's office.
Okay.
And I want to know on what legal authority. Because as you know, that law is the tool for the implementation of government policy or public policy.
Yes.
On what grounds? I quote the law on which the presiding officer operated. It's clear. On what grounds, on what legal grounds that the president operates. And I'm not faulting anybody, all I'm just stating the fact.
Yes, so
and this is why I'm saying it is illegal, there's no legal grounds. You see, a lot of people, even at government level in Trinidad, don't recognize, because I have spoken to people in the media, don't recognize that the chief secretary is not appointed by the president. The chief secretary and the deputy, they are elected by the assemblymen and then administer the oath of office. They receive no other instrument.
Well, look at that.
It's only when the chief secretary under Section 33 tells the president to appoint a secretary. That secretary is appointed by the president as secretary. So they receive an instrument saying, I am appointed secretary. But even the function that they not secretary for education or works or health, or agriculture, you are appointed secretary full stop. And under Section 34 of the Tobacco to Assembly Act, once you are appointed secretary, the chief secretary assign you your duties.
Yes.
In Trinidad, it's not so. When a minister is appointed by the president on the advice of the prime minister, it is the prime minister under Section 79 that give them the duties because the prime minister says so. Let me read it in section allocation of portfolios to ministers. Section 79 of the Constitution. All it says, the president, acting in accordance with the advice of the prime minister, may, by directions in writing, assign to a prime minister or any other minister responsibility for any business of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, including the administration of any department of government. And that is so because of Section 74 of the Constitution.
Yes.
Section 74 says that the executive authority of Trinidad and Tobago is vested in the president. Let me read it. The executive authority of Trinidad and Tobago shall be vested in the president and subject to the Constitution, may be exercised by him either directly or through officers subordinate to him. So subject to the Constitution means, though all this executive authority, all these functions is the president only.
Yes. This
But
is what I seem to realize.
Yeah, that is what it says. But the Constitution says the way that is done is that the prime minister must tell you, appoint a minister, and tell you what function that the prime minister, that the minister must be given. That is what they say. So they give it to officers subordinate to her, like the ministers of government.
Yes.
In Tobago House of Assembly, not so. It's the chief secretary that assign you your responsibility. Let me just read it and then come back to Section 34. Section 34 says that. What it says, that the executive council shall be responsible for the carrying out of the functions of the assembly, and the chief secretary may, for that purpose, undertake or assign to a secretary responsibility for any such function. So when you are appointed secretary, you come back, the chief secretary say, assigning your agriculture, that assigning your education, works, infrastructure, he writes up something and give it to you.
Yes.
And then you are named.
Yes.
And that is how the division is named that. Health, wellness, and something. So he give you that, and then that is given to you by the chief. But whereas I was a minister of government myself, so I tell you, when you go there, you're appointed minister. And then the direction in writing is what people call the instrument. You ever say you receive your instrument from?
Yes.
But the instrument includes, one, your appointment as minister, and two, your directions in writing, meaning these are the things you are responsible for.
Okay. I understand it.
Both of them are your instrument.
Yes.
So the population need to understand. This is why sometimes a lot of ordinary people in the population, have a misconception and a fool. They don't know how the country works.
Yeah, that is so true.
They don't know. At the highest level, people don't know how it works. And the kind of conversation I have today with people, they really don't know how the country works. Look, and we're not calling it. Look at the point that was made today when you said they're saying that have no executive council. I said, how you mean? Since last week Wednesday, you had an executive council, the chief secretary and the deputy.
Yes.
And they said, but no. I said, yes, you have a secretary, you have a chief secretary, and a deputy chief secretary. Do you know that in Trinidad and Tobago, under the Constitution, do you know that the cabinet can be one or two? Can be two? You didn't know that?
No, I don't.
Let me read it. Section 75. There shall be a cabinet for Trinidad and Tobago, which shall have the general direction and control of the government of Trinidad and Tobago and shall be collectively responsible therefore to Parliament. Listen to this. The cabinet shall consist of the president and such number of other ministers, of whom one shall be the Attorney General, appointed in accordance with the provision of Section 76, as the Prime Minister may consider appropriate. He don't have to appoint no other minister. People didn't know that, you know. The cabinet can be two.
Yes.
In fact, there's a legal opinion that says it can be one.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Prime Minister alone. And that is the quorum of the cabinet. One. The quorum of the cabinet. When I hear a lot of the cabinet decide, it could be one.
Yeah.
The quorum of the cabinet is one
It's
person,
one
the Prime
person.
Minister alone.
Wow.
One see there.
This is actually knowledge. This is because this is what a lot of people like myself and all do not understand.
People in
so
government
actually, you reading this now, we able to understand a lot more because some
The
of
media today
information- Yeah, because some of the information we would have been lost to it as well.
I walk out here and I meet my friend out there, and he questioned me on something,
Yes.
and I took out the act,
Yes.
and he said, "Oh my God," me said, and I said, "Well, we're gonna share the information today
Yes.
in the
yes.
studio when we get inside in a short while,
Of course.
because people really don't know,
Yes,
and this is
okay.
why the president make a blunder. If the president went today, and let me see, give that boy something, or appoint him.
Yes.
You elected and then appointed? And I said to them, my God. So what in fact it means is that what the presiding officer they do in the house, all of them do last week, illegal.
Illegal.
So
yeah.
she do it over today.
Wow.
And when done is what happened today, that is illegal.
Wow.
It's a blunder. It's wrong.
Yeah. I understand definitely what's going on there.
But Murray, there are so many things that we need to put the Tobago's house in order so that we can get on with the business at Tobago. Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
hey, good afternoon to Alicia Fernandez. Sandy
Yeah,
Grande is inside.
yeah.
Good afternoon to you. How you
Good
doing?
afternoon. So sometimes, let me tell you something. People in Trinidad, a lot of people in Trinidad, look at your program.
Yes. I'm aware of that.
They look at your program
Yes.
and say that they receive such education because nobody down there in government teach them these
Teach
things.
them these things.
No.
Yeah.
So they are in the dark about a lot of things.
Yes, I knew about that. I know a lot of people actually met me and told me the same thing.
They say
Sometimes
they
people
glue
ask
on,
me-
they glue on GLS 103
Oh,
on a Tuesday afternoon once we coming on.
Yes.
Because they say, Lord God, they never knew these things.
I want to take that comment. A comment to that actually to you there, Mr. Charles. It says Mr. Charles.
Always enlightening. Thanks for the education. It's the only way. Thank you, my brother. It is the only way that you can be empowered
Yes.
by receiving accurate information.
Yes,
I
so
told somebody,
Yes, so true.
do you know what policy making is? It is decision with information.
Yes.
With accurate information is good policy making.
So true.
But if your bad policy making is in decision with inaccurate information. So we have been a lot of bad policies being made because you're making decisions with inaccurate information.
Yes, and basically this is why always on a Tuesday you're all locked in to get more details on the issues that actually coming out of Tobago's affairs, right? And I must say, Mr. Charles, you is what I call a blessing because actually a lot of people they're not aware of this. They're definitely not aware of this.
They don't know.
You know, they are very well lost to it. Right? And I like to say good afternoon goes out to the guy with the bakery there in Pembroke who always locked on. Right? Because he met me in Trinidad and he said to me, I only hope that I'm seeing you all this weekend.
Well, tell him yes, we apologize for,
Yes.
but every time you have to improve, there are sacrifices you have to make.
Have to make, yes.
So you
true.
make some sacrifices because to give them better quality stuff,
course,
you have to
course.
make a sacrifice, and they have to sacrifice by
course.
not hearing us for a couple of
Exactly.
weeks. I love chatting with people,
Of course, I
always
realize
and
that.
so on, and always try to enlighten people and move them to upward mobility. Not to degrade them,
So
not
true.
to attack them, because sometimes people ask you a question in a very funny way. It's because they don't know, and they
true,
don't know the
so
correct way of asking the question. This is why on this we abuse nobody, we don't rough anybody.
No.
No matter how they ask the question, we take it to say that is a person don't know. Let us try our best to give them the answer that will help them.
Good afternoon to Mr. Anderson. I just see you just pop in there. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Anderson.
Oh yes.
So, keep your... Come on, send your question.
It's all right.
Whatever answers you need to get, keep
Yes,
it coming.
sir.
I know a lot of you looked on. Keep sharing, describe, and
Let me
like.
say this to people. There are some people, Godfrey,
Yes.
who say this information that they receive from this, sometimes they have no question, they're just waiting to have more information so that
So
they are
true.
even students.
So
Hello,
true.
hello. Students in the university says that some of the things we deal with here
Yeah.
are things that they are asked,
So
in
true,
university.
So true.
And
so
nobody, they get it here on your program.
true. Yes. And that is so true.
Because they want to do government, they're doing administration, public administration, they're doing government, they're doing all sorts of stuff, and they don't know how the country works, they don't know the constitution, they don't know these things. And our duty is to help them. And if they ask questions about things, even what they ask them in school, they raise it on your program, we will provide them with the answer.
Let's take this one from Mr. Joseph Charles. He said, Mr. Charles, you run Tobago with small money.
Yes,
Yes.
and let me repeat that, and it's not something that I like to talk about. My administration operated Tobago on an annual basis with $300 million for everything. Nothing is added to the responsibility and function of the assembly since then, because the Tobago House of Assembly Act 1996 is the same act with the same responsibilities since 1996 to now. So nothing, no additional function was given to Tobago, and I was running it with 300 million. But I know it was
That was the
inadequate.
smallest.
Hello,
Wow.
347, 323 to do development and recurrent, to pay everybody, Not only that. And I put a government before the DRC. I always tell them I put them in court. And win all of this money that the THA receiving. You remember? DRC, 4.03% of the budget, up to 6.9%.
Okay.
We won that in 2000, September,
Yes.
October.
Yes.
The Prime Minister, who was supposed to, according to Section 59 of Tobago's Assembly Act, was supposed to take it to the Parliament, didn't take it until after the budget year in October. We carry ours on the 28th of September 2000 and report to the Assembly and show it off. Oh God, the days of mendicancy of the Tobagonians are over. The Prime Minister in Trinidad then said, we ain't carrying it there yet. And your election is January 2001.
Lord.
And you remember he came up here and campaigned election to get rid of me?
yes.
And he succeeded. So the first tranche of the money that we won for the people of Tobago was given to the new administration under Mr. London.
Yes.
That is how Tobago budget was increased from 300 million to the billions they are receiving today. I fought for that for Tobago, but I'm not there to give it to you.
Good afternoon to Nicholas Sweetlips out of New York, Brooklyn.
Oh my
And
God.
to Mr. Anderson. Let's say that comment from Mr. Anderson there.
Question number one. We have a new chief secretary. We will love to see improvement in Tobago. Yeah, but he would not be able to do anything because he is the agent of Tobago's colonization. Let me repeat that. He is the agent of a party that is running Tobago from Trinidad, the PNM.
Yes.
So he is just an agent or a puppet of that. He would not be able to do anything. What you want is a Tobago-based party that is Tobago directed and controlled, so we make our decisions here. Every decision that is made in Tobago in the assembly, since our time, is made by the party in Trinidad. Everybody knows that. Even with this crisis that took place in the PNM party, that goes in the house right now, up to now we're suffering that, is made by the party in Trinidad. Tobago has not solved the problem. Not even the PNM council here. The direction comes from Trinidad.
So true.
So the new chief secretary, and he would have given away his hand the day that it was inaugurated last week, Tuesday, when he said that he's history making. You remember that?
Yes.
And there is a new history again to be made in January when we have the first woman chief secretary. So he is filling a slot for Tracy. So he would not be able to do anything.
Okay.
He's just going to be doing what I tell him to do. He doesn't have an experience at all.
So you just get your answer there, Mr.
Yeah,
Anderson.
you could try to help. If they were detached, let's assume then that it was a party that people voted into office that was not controlled from outer Trinidad. And Ansil Dennis was made a chief secretary. Forget his age, because age has nothing to do with this. It has to do with your qualification, with your, and when I say I don't mean a university, That means that you have the ability to deal with this matter,
Yes.
Running government is a complex business, The biggest business. Let's assume that Anslim would belong to such a party in Tobago and is not Trinidad that directing the show and under control by Trinidad. The first person to call him would have been me and say, hey, let me offer you some help so that we can make Tobago better and improve the lot of the people. But it's a waste of time because every direction comes from Trinidad, which is contrary to self-government. And I'm not joking.
Yes, I understand what you're saying.
Just remember, Orville was PNM,
Yes.
Is Orville and them campaign and get me out of office, You remember that?
Yes.
But yet when the time came and they didn't know what to do, I went and sit down and say, hey, we need to fix the Tobago government by preparing a bill and carry it to Parliament so that it pass it, so we'll have our power in Tobago to fix the place. It is before the Parliament still. You remember that?
Yes.
I was not a friend. But in the interest of Tobago, I did that. But where Ansel Dennis is now, I can't help him because he cannot be helped. He's just the agent of and puppet of a party from Trinidad.
Because we still don't have our own.
Yeah, because
voice.
just remember, he feel a void.
Yeah.
And he is there until the next CHA election, which is shortly.
Yes.
So he just feel a void. And he said it, that there is another history making when the new woman chief secretary. So he's filling that void down here. And I know what is happening.
Yes.
They want Ansel to be buttered up right now, butter him up right now, direct him what to do, and then Tracy will lead the election, and Tracy cannot contest the seat up in Delaford and Speyside and Charlottesville because I Farley on, and Farley will win it. If Farley goes up there, he will win that from her. So they are looking to make the seat vacate his seat down here because they always believe that Buku, whatever his seat is, Buku,
He's the strongest, yes.
is PNM stronghold. So they want to make sure that she comes and contests in the seat.
Okay.
So that is the history making. And then Ansel will be out. He may be made a councillor and then he wait his turn to come back as chief secretary, so he will be able to have to say, I know how to do it after Tracy. I know how to do it because I served there as chief secretary before.
Yes.
That is the plot.
Let's take this comments from Mr. Rodriguez.
Dion Rodriguez. Is it possible to get these information in recorded form? This is knowledge what wants to study this politics. Agreed is all. He said Tobago problem is Tobago's political construct at this time. Yes, that's quite true.
Yes.
It is so easy. Mr. Rodriguez, it is so easy. Once you understand what we're saying, because just remember, most of the Caribbean countries, let me give you the English-speaking Caribbean countries.
Yeah.
They were once under British rule. All the laws used to be passed in the British Parliament. So for us to get our independence or self-government, whether it's Trinidad or Grenada or Barbados or Jamaica, the country had to go to England and say, Giwi, you can't stay in England and run with business down here.
Yes.
And that is where Dr. Williams and Lieutenant Capilio did. The legislation was passed in the British Parliament to give them the power. And then they come down and hold the elections in Trinidad and Tobago based upon the new constitution that was passed. And the PNM won it. It's the same thing Tobago is saying. That all of us in Tobago have to speak with one voice to the parliament in Trinidad to pass the legislation so that our power will come over here. When that is done, an election will be held in Tobago, and then the Tobago population will vote for those who they know will be able to deliver it to them. That's the solution to the problem. That's the construct you want here. There is no other construct. Anything is a losing battle. This thing needs to change. That is Anderson. But the power is in your hand. Power relinquishes nothing except with a demand. Power don't give up anything, without to demand it. Because remember, as I explained to you before, that politics is a civilized form of war. Because what countries do, they want to take over your country and want to take control of your resources. Sometimes they will wage a war against you if they have military power and might above you. So they will come and fight you and win. Once they win, they take over your country by force. But election is a way of political parties in the country taking over the power from you. Go out there, market and campaign and do everything to take away your power. You're not sitting down and allow that, So there is a civilized form of war to take away power from you. You're not sitting down and allowing anybody to do that.
So true that.
And that is why this thing is not for children. But I notice a lot of children in the politics of Tobago.
So true,
It's a serious business.
Yeah, so true.
Politics is not entertainment. It's not media hype. It's serious business of governance of a country. It is the highest form of public service that has to be performed. And once it is the highest level of public service that has to be performed, like teaching or nursing or policing, because you have to have nurses or else you don't have no medical care.
Exactly.
So it's a public service.
Yes.
Teaching is a public service. If you have no teachers in the school, you can have no education being imparted to the population. Politics is the highest form of that. So somebody has to perform it. And if good people don't perform it and somebody has to perform it, bad people will perform it. And that's why we are allowing to happen, that bad people in the politics of Trinidad and Tobago, why we having corruption, we having all kind of craziness. Nepotism and all kind of foolishness. If you have good people in office, they tell you that, If a man or a woman is good, the government you run can be bad. And if a man or a woman is bad, the government you run can be good. Because a good tree don't bear bad fruit, and a bad tree don't bear good fruit.
That is so true. That's who, Brendan?
Yeah.
I see a convoy, that's Brendan here?
Where? Brendan Bruce.
Yes, Brendan Bruce.
We will like them to help at the small business owners right now.
Good choice, Mr. Brendan. Good
The
choice.
The PNM is only selling those. They can't even sell it. Because of the fact, let me say this to Brendan. Brendan, I am journeying on this thing with you all for over 40 years, since in my teen. Let me say this before I answer Brendan. Do you know that the institution that was in governance in Tobago before the Tobago Assembly was what? The County Council. Do you know that I was a member in the County Council and the leader of the minority in that? At the age 31? There were 4 of us. Lionel Bonnet was the chairman of the County Council then. There were 4 of us, Myself, George Robley, from the Goodwood, Mrs. Bernadette Devine from Mariah. The lady from Delaford was Margaret Jack. I call the 4 of us here. Yeah. No, myself, Hochoy Charles, Margaret Jack, Bernadette Devine, and George Robley. I was the leader of that, at the age 31. At age 34, at age 34, you know where I was? I was the leader of government business in the assembly.
Wow.
And let me tell you, the assembly was not structured like now. I'm not taking away anything from Ansel. The assembly was not structured like now. You used to have a chairman who belonged to to our party, but he has to preside in the house as he preside in office and everything. So he has to be fair to both sides of the house. So the house used to be run on the floor by the leader of government of assembly business, which was me. So I was running the assembly. I set up the first Tobago House of Assembly in 1980. Mr. Robinson was the chairman. He sat at home, He never got an office, on Robinson Street. And he called me to set up the government. I was 34 years.
So,
and I become the first chief secretary. I become a minister of government.
Yes.
At 42.
Wow.
And at 50, I become the first chief secretary. So I was, this is why I know the Tobago situation inside out. I know every person in Trinidad and Tobago and the world that have something good for Tobago and have something bad.
Yes.
I have dealt with them. So this is why I am around to help you all to put something in place that will save your life and save your children.
Yes. Let's take this comment from Mr. Joseph Charles and then Mr. Anderson. We coming with your answer in a short while.
Yeah.
EJ,
What you say?
Mr. Charles,
you fight for us
yeah.
to get money in the assembly, but you do not get the credit. I don't want credit, give it to God. But I mean, people have to understand that Hochoy Charles don't work for credit. Although I think that people will do that. And you have to recognize that. Because they value your contribution and they do that. I appreciate that. But Hochoy Charles died to himself a long time ago. All I want to do is the Tobago business to fix. And when he fixed, Hochoy Charles done with active politics.
All right. Let's take this.
And another point that out to people,
Yes.
Put that out to me.
I saw Mr. Anderson. I see a lot of comments coming in. Mr. Brendan, Bruce will come to you just now. Let's
Anderson,
take Anderson.
Do we think that the government is doing a great job at this COVID-19?
Yes.
There are several things that they need to do, but I think that the government, I don't like to answer because sometimes some people call in on this program to ask if the government doing a good job.
Good job, yes.
How do you evaluate that? Huh? I don't want to comment, or else something bad may be said, which is quite true.
That is so
The
true.
government allow carnival to take place to allow their friends to participate. And that will create this thing in Trinidad.
Let's say to bring in the more money.
Yeah, to create a problem.
Yes.
Because you remember, this thing break in December. January, we know. Even the people who are the people who go to Mecca, the Muslim people, they cancel Mecca, because they don't want to crowd them.
So true.
And you have to remember that what happened in Trinidad and Tobago is that they started to see that all the first 49 people that they bring inside there, that they test for COVID, that were COVID positive, they were what? They came in on a cruise ship.
Yes.
But they did not mingle with the population. They took them straight from the airport, straight into quarantine.
Yes.
They did not contaminate this population to get 100 and something.
Yes, so true.
And we don't understand that. So the government had to try their best to make sure. So what they're doing now, I think that they are actually trying to handle it, go the social distancing, but there are several other little things that they need to look at. So I would not give them a bad grade for that. But they allow this thing and they have to do well to stop it.
Yes.
Or else it go backfire.
Yes.
And I'm serious.
Say good afternoon to Mr. Romeo. Thanks for your comment. Let's take the next comment from Mr. Brendan Bruce. The government, yes, take it from there.
What you say? The government had us fill out all the forms. Oh, right. For the small business. Listen to me. I listened to the minister today,
Yes,
but she's saying something more. Let me read it. Because of the tourism department situation with us and all the information, I sent out the forms, all false information that they sent out. So they are basically selling us false dreams on Tobago. On Tobago. Tobago make up with a lot of tourism, small businesses. People have to understand what tourism is, And I think that all the tourism business have shut down. And I am sure to God, from what we know and what we were planning, because our development plan that we wrote in 1998 for 15 years in Tobago is not implemented. And we were saying to the government that tourism is not an activity. It is not hotel room. Tourism is a cluster of activities which include the fisherman, the farmer, the restaurant, well, the hotels are included, the manufacturing, the motor car industry because they do rental. If we go through this whole thing, it's a cluster of economic activities that make up tourism. And I'm saying that they have all gone through because we're looking what tourism is bringing of people from one place. Every country must have tourism.
Correct.
Because people will come to your country.
Yes.
But you cannot go and put, remember we talk about that on this program,
Yes.
you can't go and put all your eggs and rely, because it's the most fragile industry in the world. Because the moment something, remember we said that before, even before COVID, the moment something happens to those countries where your guests come from, your hotel industry cripple.
Yes, it cripple.
They have a war outside there and they can't travel again. All your rooms gone through. And that is why we were doing tourism a different way. I am sure one of these evenings will come and share what we were doing, especially the small business. These are the key. You remember it's my administration that started to say, add another room onto your house.
Yes.
Add more. So that the tourists, when they come, they will be able to enjoy our culture, be with us, and understand the life. When the tourists come, when the people from North America and Europe come here, they don't want to go and eat the same thing they're eating outside there. They want to eat a pilau. They want to eat a little thing cooked up by us. They want to go and pull some seine down there to see where we go now. Some of them never see a fowl.
Yes.
Because all they know about a fowl is when they see in the supermarket to eat. And they know it by wings and legs and drumstick. They never see a fowl and they want to know. They never see a live fish that come in the bay right down there. And they never see a fish. They only see parts of it in a supermarket, deep freeze.
Exactly. So
We don't know how valuable. That is why Castara tourism never fall off. With all that is happening to the tourism, Castara tourism never fall off. Because they live with the culture. The tourists want to go there all the time because they are involved with the people. They have plenty of money to make in it, you know. What we call niche tourism. We do this thing bad. Of course, you will need some of the large hotels and so on. And I don't think we have too many large ones here. But we have destroyed it. And we have to understand that the government of Trinidad was destroying our tourism. I have said that to Wilson and them when they took over from me as chief secretary and they started to go down a road. I said to them, in the house, it is recorded in Hansard. I say, hey, pay attention to what the government, and PNM too, you know, pay attention to what they're doing in Trinidad. You are saying that Tobago is the tourism. We are oil and gas in Trinidad. That's where we set up in Trinidad. But Tobago is the tourism place. But you are building the cruise ship complex in Port of Spain. You're not learning, you're not seeing. You know what happened? You are building the hotels on the waterfront in Trinidad. You're not seeing what they're doing. You know, we live to see that destroy Tobago tourism completely. Secondly, I said you all are in government. What we were doing in 2000 is that the government need to look at the exchange rate adjustment every day. The money supply. That is like, for example, like Jamaica. Jamaica, why I think with all the crime in Jamaica, millions of tourists go there. You don't know why? Look at what they do, and that's what we're telling the government. They have one policy, one what we call monetary policy for Trinidad and Tobago. And I say, hey, your monetary policy, your one monetary policy that applies to two separate economies, Tobago, which is tourism, and Trinidad, which is oil and gas, will destroy the Tobago economy. And let me tell you why. The tourists coming down here, coming to the Caribbean, they are looking at where they can get, let me say US, where we can get the greatest value for we $1 US.
correct.
What Jamaica does is to look at the tourists coming and say, hey, if the normal rate of exchange is, let me me just use a figure. Let me say, like Trinidad and Tobago, is $6 TT to $1 US. They will make the exchange rate for the tourists that coming $10 to 1. So the tourist is able, when they change the $1, to spend a lot more money, rent another car, eat and go out in an entertainment place because they have more money to spend in your country. But we are the same rate.
Yes. Right.
Although we have the best thing to export, to offer the tourists. But the monetary policy that we have, it destroyed. They go to Jamaica.
Yes.
Because you don't have leadership in Tobago. They don't understand nothing. They think the assembly is a joke business, it's a job for somebody and put money in their pocket. This is about the people way of life and to fix and solve the problem of the people of Tobago.
Yes.
Who negotiated with the government in Trinidad about these things? Nobody.
Let's take this next comment from Mr. Anderson.
The government has been giving out pandemic grants, but most of the people did not receive their support grants as yet. But it's true. The Minister of Finance said that. They mentioned these things and the administrative and the structure to be put in place, the institution to be put in place to deliver was not there. So they now put it in place. They don't know how many hungry people outside here. No? And let me tell you something now. Even after COVID, these businesses cannot start back at the level that they were at. They have to start from scratch.
So true.
So
true.
thousands of people will be unemployed. Even if the thing grow back, it will take a number of years for the economy to go back to where it was.
Yes.
And the government have to be paying for those people in the meantime because they have nothing to do. And that is why you have Tobago House of Assembly should have been able to put an arrangement, and we're not talking joke here, you know, to put an arrangement in place to see about the Tobago people. That is why we have a Tobago House of Assembly, to see about the welfare of the people of Tobago. So the monies that are coming here, we should have been negotiating that. Grants coming, loan coming from whether it's the World Bank or the UNDP or wherever, the United Nations or from the WHO coming here. We should be able to be in a position to examine our own local condition here so we could be able to fix our people. They're having these similar problems in Trinidad. You know why? Too much centralization. When you decentralize, what you do is to solve a lot of the problem that you have. You send a man to deliver food in Charlottesville from Canaan Bonaccord. He doesn't know the people. So my wife will come and say, I get 15 children and look dead over there. Some auntie will come, it's the same 15 people. But if I am from Charlottesville distributing the food, it can't happen because I know them.
Exactly. So true.
That is the problem with the country. And we're begging the government, say, decentralize, you will solve the problem. So all these double things that people doing and people making double claim can't happen if you put this responsibility in the hands of the people who are close by. And I'm not saying, I'm using this loosely, village council or whatever. The community must have a council or a group that's responsible for these things in the community. So you can't fool them because they know everybody in the community. You can't come and say, I have this. You say, no, me know I get one picnic. And that one picnic going to Bishop's High School. You can't come here and fool me because me know. And that's the problem with the country.
Yes. Mr.
But the question they raised there are serious questions, you know, because a lot of people are going through, you know.
Yes.
Because they lose their job, they close down their business, they have to pay bank. It's a lot. And that is why you have a government in Tobago to sit down, to hear these people concerned so you could be able to know what system and program to put in place to help your people. There are some things that you have to give grant, you know. The small and micro enterprises is not loan, you know. It has to be grant, you know, what you call a bailout, that they don't have to pay back so that they can start back their life.
Let's
my
take
God.
This next comment from Mr. Sandy.
Yeah, boy, and we have to close it off here and take the news.
Yes,
Anyhow, where is the two representatives from Tobago? What is being done for us in Tobago? Are they actually that? No, the way the system in the parliament works, we warn you about that, is that once you vote for candidates, the two representatives in Tobago, and they belong to a party in Trinidad that belongs to either government or opposition, they can't speak for Tobago. They have to speak for the party. That is how the parliament works. And that is why they can't speak for Tobago, because they are not authorized to speak for Tobago.
Yes.
A lot of people in Tobago believe that once you vote for a representative and they get in the parliament, they must get up and speak for you. But the only way that could happen is if you vote for two Tobago representatives that belong to a Tobago-based party and not belonging to the government or the opposition in Trinidad.
Yes.
It's happened before. That is how the parliament works. You work with two sides, government and opposition. And once you belong to either of those sides, you have to be authorized by them to speak. So you can't get up and talk with Tobago. Hey, now, boy, this is education, boy. Anyhow, sorry, we have to... Tobago should be its own boss. Yes, Mr. Anderson, that is what we're saying. And you, the people of Tobago, will be the boss of those because you will have the power to elect those to run your business in Tobago. And when they messed up, you will have the power in your hand to remove them from office so they can behave themselves.
Of course.
Anyhow, we have to go, boy.
We gotta go. It's now 10 minutes after the
This is, oh Lord, look at Libra Faith.
Libra Faith,
Oh my God.
Good afternoon to also Antonio Phillips. I see
Yeah,
you
we're gonna get Lee. We miss you. We miss you. And we are going to get you next week. We're going to be back with the program.
Gonna be back.
So keep all your questions, Lee. Love you. We have to go now because we have important news to listen to.
Yes. So people, don't forget, look out for us next week, Tuesday.
This was
We're gonna
nice.
be on. Looking forward to see you guys. Look forward.
Love you. Question like that this evening.
This is an
Look
SOS from the Trinidad.
Here, Mix Master Joy.
Location 7 miles off the coast of Venezuela.
Video was nice.
SOS, Mayday.
Where is the feet? Let us make a
The Trinidad, a luxury liner.
If you ask
Don't forget, next week we will take your comments, alright, Mr. Anderson? And Miss
Antonio.
Lee.
Yeah.
Yes.
Antonio
and
Phillips, we gonna
Mr.
take-
Antonio Phillips, we will
We gonna
continue
respond to
next
that
week.
next
Yes, it's smooth and free. But sadly, Eric William passed away. The ship hit rough water that day. Someone turned the bridge over to a captain named Chambers. Me blood crawl, things start to fall. Hold me head when I sail a ball. Captain, the ship is sinking. Captain, the seas are rough. Oh yes, we gas tank almost empty, no electricity. We oil pressure reading low. Shall we abandon ship or shall we stay on it and perish slow? We don't know. Captain, you tell me what to do. Whoa. The Trinidad, oh, she was a beauty with wealth that few surpassed. And in her day, she sailed majestically. There were few in her class. Faithfully, she fulfilled her sailor's need. Some were overpowered by greed, and so they pilfered slow. Some took bite, bulk, and go. Now she looked dull, she's at the lull. She could barely sit on her hull. Captain, the ship is sinking. Captain, the seas are rough. Oh yes, we gas tank almost empty, no electricity. We oil pressure reading low. Shall we abandon ship or shall we stay on it and perish slow? We don't know. Captain, you tell me what to do. Whoa. The Trinidad, in her day of sailing, she was a friend to one and all. She never once ever hesitated to answer all SOS calls. And yes, well, she always did her best to help out those in distress. Now it's so sad to see she's in difficulties. Though she helped cheer, some of them cheer and sarcastically declare, Captain, the ship is sinking. Captain, the seas are rough. We gas tank almost empty, no electricity. We oil pressure reading low. Shall we abandon ship or shall we sit on it and perish slow? We don't know. Captain, you tell me what to do. Whoa. If only there was something I could have done to restore the credibility of this beautiful vessel. Money's no problem. Now there's a lot of fingers pointing, suspicion running strong. Who's to be blamed for all her failures? Who's to be blamed for doing her wrong? Now please remember I'm warning you, for 30 years she had the same crew who hold the keys to her fault. So we know who's at fault. Now it's up to you, it's up to me to make her worthy to go back to sea. Captain, the ship is sinking. Captain, the seas are rough. Oh yes, we gas tank almost empty, no electricity. We oil pressure reading low. Shall we abandon ship, or shall we stay on it and perish slow? We don't know. Captain, you tell me what to do. We don't know. Captain, you tell me. Oh, yo. We don't know. You tell me. Oh, we don't know. Put up a flag. Oh gosh, we don't know. When we turn to the World Bank for help. Oh, aye, oh. We don't know. Somebody put an application to the World Bank. Probably we may get some help to do the repairs. We don't know. You tell me what to do.
I'd like to say good night. Goes out to you, Crystal. Good night to each and everyone. Hope to see you guys next week, Tuesday, alright? Keep your comments, keep your questions. Don't forget, it's from 5:30 till 7 o'clock, alright? Then after we give you the chance to take in your news. See you guys next week.
And woman who work for less than $3,000 a month, for example, which is about 15% of the population, basically.